Perik Hey. The last few weeks, Perik Gimel, basically we were talking about the creation of the world, and especially what Hashem created on the first day of creation. There was a lot of very esoteric ideas. Then Perik Dalad, which we're skipping, is about the second day of creation, which in specific talks about the creation of Malachim, and then it talks about all kinds of details about Malachim that we have no shaykhs to, Ma'aseh Merkavos, so we're skipping that. And Hashem, we're starting Perik Hey today, which is a little bit more down to earth, the third day of creation, where Hashem created the earth. So I think that it's a shtickle kedai, before we start the Perik, to just look at the psukim in Parshas Bereshis about the creation of the world, so that we have a better appreciation of what the drushes are going to be. So we're looking at Perik Aleph, Pasuk Tes. Mamash in the beginning, first page. Vayomer Elokim, Hashem said, Yikovu hamayim, the water should gather up, mitachas hashamayim, underneath the heavens, el makom echad, to one place, v'seireh hayabasha, and the dry land should be visible, vayichen, and that's where, and then it happened. Vayikra Elokim leyabasha eretz, Hashem called the dry land eretz, ulemikveh hamayim kara yamim, and to the gathering of water, Hashem called them seas. Vayomer Elokim Yetev, Hashem saw that it was good. The next step, Vayomer Elokim, Hashem said, Tajei ha'aretz desha, the land should produce vegetation. Esav Mazriya Zera, let's call it grass that produces seed and goes off and makes more grass. Eitz Pri, Eisa Pri Liminoi, trees, fruit trees that can make fruits like itself. Asher Zara Bayala Aretz, that'll be planted in the land. Vayhichen, and it happened that what happened? Pasuk Yud Beis says, V'teitzei ha'aretz, the land produced desha, vegetation, Esav Mazriya Zera Leminehu, grass that can create seeds for grass to go further. The Eitz Eisa Pri Asher Zara Boy Leminehu, and trees that make fruits that could also be planted according to their species. Vayar Elokim Kitov, and Hashem said it was good. Vayar Vayvaykar Yom Shlishi. That was the third day. Fine. With this, we can start the Perik. Perik Chamishi. Bashlishi Haysoha Ishor Kabika. On the third day of creation, the beginning of the third day of creation, the land was mamish flat like a plain. It was flat, nothing going up and down. And the whole world there was this flat land, and on top of the whole land was covered with water. There was water covering the whole land. When the words came out of when the words came out of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when he said Yikovu Hamayim, Olo Miktzis Oretz Hehorim VeHagvois, the different in the different places of the world, mountains and hills came up from the ground. And these hills and mountains weren't centered on one place. They were all over the world. There's different hills and mountains. V'nasim amakim shel teicha shel eretz, and different valleys and ditches came on the surface of the land. V'nizgalgulu hamayim v'nikvu la'amakim, and the waters all moved around and they gathered in these ditches, and that's where they stayed. Shenemar u'lemikveh hamayim kara yamim, to these gatherings of water. That's what Hashem called the seas. That's where the sea, or really means the ocean. The ocean came from the gathering of this water. Yeah, I have that extra. Min Perik Hey. Fine. Just there's a few important points over here. All right, let's read weiter. Let's continue over here. Miyad nizgo hamayim, then the waters became haughty. They had gaiva. V'olu l'chases ha'aret kivatchila, and they wanted to go up and cover the land like it was originally. Ad shegor b'hem HaKadosh Baruch Hu, until Hashem screamed at them. Uchvashan, and he conquered these waters. V'nusonan tachas kapais raglov v'midodin b'shol, Hashem put these waters under his feet, meaning like under his control, and he kept them in check. Medodon b'shol means that he kept them measured with his steps, meaning like he put his foot down so to speak, and made sure that the waters don't go for that they won't go past and go further or go less than the way Hashem wanted them to be. Hashem put certain boundaries on the water. This is where the water is supposed to be. This is where the land is supposed to be, and that's it. And then the Medrash says, Hashem made the sand as the boundaries for the sea. Like a person who makes a fence around his vineyard, so too Hashem made the sand. When you go to the beach, you see sand. That sand is supposed to serve as the border between the yamim and the water and the sea. And then the Medrash says something interesting. It says, when the water, let's say, when the tides of the ocean come up closer to the eretz, and they see this sand, they go up, and they see the sand in front of it, then they go backwards. That's where you have the tides coming in and then going out. It says in the pasuk, don't you see my sign? Aren't you scared of me that I put that I put the sand as the border for the sea? By the way, we have Mr. Felder. We have cookies of it, brownies if you want. So there's a lot of interesting ideas over here to discuss. The first one we'll discuss is a sort of a continuation of what we spoke about last week. Stam, you can ask a question on this whole thing. Why did Hashem have to create the world like this? Just mitchila, Hashem should have created wherever He wanted the water, have the water. Wherever He wanted there to be land, make land. Why do you have to make it that there was first there was a land and it was all flat and it took over the whole world, and on top of that was water, and then Hashem had the water move around, and then you had the water here and the land here, and then the water wanted to take over the land, and Hashem made water over here, land over here, and the sand is going to be a separation between the two. Why did Hashem have to make it like this? A whole story of it. Just make it the way you wanted to make it from the beginning. Just make it like that. So the sefer that we quoted last week talks about this. The sefer Maaseh Hashem from Rabbi Eliezer Ashkenazi. So last week what I quoted from was in Parshas Bereshis in Parak Beis, Maaseh Bereshis, and what I'm quoting from tonight is in Maaseh Bereshis Parak Zayin, where he's discussing the creation of the third day of creation, where he says it's the same idea that we spoke about last week. That last week we said that we find that Hashem did two sorts of creations. He did a creation of Yesh Me'ayin and Yesh Me'yesh. He created something from nothing, and He created something from something. And the way I understood that was that the something from something means that Hashem would intervene in things that were already created. So he says that here too, on the third day of creation, Hashem Dafka created it like this to bring out this point again, that Hashem could intervene in creation. Not just that He would create it like this and that's the way it stays. No, Hashem made the water and land, it was all like mixed up together, and then Hashem separated and made the water go here and the land go here, and everything is hunky-dory. That's the way the Maaseh Hashem explains it. You don't like it?
Don't we have any of the Meforshim to speak about what the creative process is? Okay, because it's obvious to me. This is how you create something, how you make something. Certainly how you make a painting, okay? You don't start and have like a photographic image of what you're going to do, okay? You start putting the stuff down and you move it around. Until you get it the way you want it.
But that's you. But when Hashem is creating things, Hashem already knows how the end is going to look. You don't know how the end is going to look, so you have to put everything together and try to...
An artist has an idea, he has a picture of what he wants to do and everything, but he puts the stuff down and then he moves it around to conform with that conception of what he wants to do. I mean, it's not just me. I know that's how painters work.
Fine, but Hashem is not just a painter. Hashem knows exactly how He's going to want it. So why would He do it in two steps if He could do it in one step?
That's the way it is. That's the creative process.
So that's what you're saying.
He's the primary. He's the first one.
Right.
You know.
So that's exactly what He's saying.
Creative people, artists did not get it from, it didn't come to them, stam.
Right.
Okay? It came from first one.
Exactly. Now, another nukuda that the same sefer in the Maaseh Hashem points out If we looked at the psukim, what did Hashem say? Hashem said, "Yikavu hamayim el malkoim echad v'seiroi hayabasha." That the water should gather around to one place, and then kilu mimela, the land will be visible. Over here, it sounds so. So from the psukim, it sounds like what was doing the active role in this creation? The waters. There's land and there's water on top of it, and Hashem said, "The water you gather up in certain places." And then as passively, so to speak, the eretz will be visible. That's what it sounds like from the psukim. But if you look over here in the Medrash, it's saying like, what happened when Hashem said Yikavu hamayim? So like mountains grew and hills grew, and then ditches came in the valleys, and because there was all this topographical changes. So somehow the water ended up in the ditches, and the mountains were coming above it. But in the psukim, it sounds like the water was moving. Here, it sounds like the eretz was moving. That's Ma'aseh Hashem's ha'ara on this medrash. And then he doesn't answer the question. He says, rather you have to say that what it's talking about over here has no shaykhs to what's talking about the psukim, and here it's talking about some sort of secrets. It says, "L'ramez l'davar nelam," and it's not talking about the same thing that the Torah is talking about. It's not coming to say Pasha Pshat in the Psukim, because it sounds like it's talking about something completely different. So, I don't know what to do with that, but
the water wasn't happy. The water...
Right, the water wasn't happy.
Covered the land. So Hashem had to put the water in its place.
So you want to say that the Psukim is talking about afterwards,
yeah. So
at that point.
He created the land in its place. The water... could have just said, "All right, I will go, there," but it didn't want to. It tried to ole.
Right.
And then Hashem had to actually put the water in its place, which is in line with the Psukim, seemingly.
Right. So you're saying the Psukim is talking about sort of like after the first step, right?
Yeah.
Interesting.
By itself, Hashem actually had to put the water in its place.
Right.
Not gravity.
Okay. There's.
How did he do it? Didn't he? At what point did he create gravity?
Isaac Newton invented gravity.
No, he recognized it maybe.
Yeah, I'm joking. Yeah.
But the point is, Hashem channeled, or he ruled these things with he created something to do it, a manner of doing it, whatever.
Right.
Well, wait, L'chora, there was no gravity yet. The earth, the Olam wasn't created. What do I mean? Yom Revi'i is when he created the sun and everything like
Right,
that.
I was just thinking that.
The gravity is
is the power of the sun, is the power of the celestial bodies and
right,
the whole balance.
It's not a celestial thing yet. It's
right.
Simply, there is no gravity. Hence the water, wasn't happy. And he had to put it in its place.
It's an interesting point. He's saying that you're saying that gravity was created on the fourth day.
Mm-hmm.
I have to think about that. This seems like it's a side point what I'm going to say now, but it really introduces a concept that I think is very important. Even without this, to know and translate into different aspects and different areas. But we'll start it off like this. He said what came when Hashem said Yikavu Harim and Gvais, mountains and hills. So we find the lashon of Harim and Gvais in many different places, mountains and hills. Pashas means hills. But what's the difference between Harim and Gvais, and what's the mashmalos of it? So it's like this. Chazal, there's a pasuk in Shir Shirim. It says it's talking about the Geula. Pashas is talking about the Geula of Mitzrayim. Could be it's talking about the Geula of Asilova as well. And it says Kol Daidi Hinei Zeba, the voice of my beloved is coming. Medaleg alei harim mekapitz al gvois. It's jumping medaleg alei harim, skipping over the mountains and jumping over the gvois. Let's call it hills. So it's talking about how, let's say, the Geula in Mitzrayim happened earlier than was anticipated. It was jumping over the mountains and the hills. What's this mountains and hills? What's it talking about? So the Gemara in, I believe, Pesachim says, medaleg alei harim zchus avos. Mekapitz al gvois zchus imohis. So Harim has something to do with the avos, and gvois has something to do with the mother, the forefathers and the foremothers. of Klal Yisrael. How do we understand this? There's a lot of different explanations to understanding this, but there's a practical mahalach in understanding the difference between the avos and the imohis, or in this case the harim and the gvois. The Vilna Gaon, the Gra in his Pirush Ader Saliyo and Yeshaya and Perek Beis, so the practical difference between harim and gvois, says that a har it has a spitz. It has it comes up to a point. It's like this. It goes up. It's all focused into one point. That's what a mountain is. Masha'enkin gvois is more like what we would say in English as a plateau. It doesn't come up to a point, but the whole thing is raised, and there's a flat area where it's raised. It doesn't come to one point. And so, based on this idea, you can very easily understand why harim is shaykh to avos, because that's how a zachar is. A zachar it comes to one point, and that's how it goes. Masha'en came by a nekeva is wide over there, so that's why gavois is chus imohis. That's basically what the Vilna Gaon explains. Chazal also say that a isha is like a beis ha'otzar because she's nasa rachav, she's wide. Similarly, the Malbim says a similar idea. He doesn't say define harim and gvois in exactly the same way, but he explains how harim is shaykh to avos and gvois is shaykh to imohis. The Malbim in his Pirush on Yeshaya, also in his sefer, he has a sefer called Yoyer Or, which is a very interesting sefer about synonyms. There's different words in Lashon HaKodesh that you think that they mean the same thing, but the Malbim says that they actually mean different things and explains how they mean different things. So harim and gvois is one of a pair of words like that. And the Malbim explains that harim is a mountain, and gvois is like a major mountain, and gvois are hills that surround the mountain. He says, b'derech klal, you have one like major mountain, a big mountain, and there's hills around it. Like we have Yerushalayim is built on a mountain, and we say about Yerushalayim harim savivla. There's like a bunch of the Judean hill, the hills of Jerusalem all around it. Or you have Mount Everest, which is like the Spitz mountain. And it's not just its own mountain. It's not just a mountain on its own. There's a whole range of mountains. The Himalayas, there's a whole bunch of mountains all around it. So just like he says, just like the nekeva surrounds the zachar, right? The woman surrounds the man. So too the gvois surround the har. So that's why harim is chus avos and gvois is chus imahos. That's what the Malbim explains. Now, it's an interesting point that when we're talking about Zachar and Nekeva in this type of context, so we don't literally mean man and woman. The term Zachar and Nekeva used especially, let's say, in Machshava and maybe Kabbalah to some extent, known as, let's say, Bechina de Duchra, Bechina de Nukva. That's how they said in Aramaic, the male aspect and the female aspect. When we use these expressions, we mean the male aspect means the person, or the force, or the person that's mashpia, the person that gives influence or gives energy or gives over something, provides something to someone else. That mashpia, he gives the shefa. That's what's called the zachar. Masha'en kain, the nekeva, what we call the female, is the receiving end, the one who receives the hashpa, receives the kayak, receives different influence, or the mushpa. Just someone who just illustrates this point very, very strongly is the Chassam Sofer in Mesachas Shavuos on Daf Yod Ches Amud Beis. The Gemara says that Kol HaParish Me'ishtei Samach Levesta Havin Leibanim Zacharim. A person who's meticulous in the laws of family purity is going to have Banim Zacharim, which literally means male children, male sons. So the Chassam Sofer says that doesn't literally mean male sons. He says like this. Maybe you can say the lav zachar mamish kamar. It doesn't literally mean male. It's known a person who provides or influences the world, he is called a zachar. He is called male. If he happens to be in his biological components, he happens to be a female. If she's zeicha to be influence others in b'mammon with her money, or l'zakes harabim k'shiva nevios, or to do good things for the public benefit, like the 7 nevios that gave nevuas for everyone, or she's zeicha to marry a talmid chacham and she supports him and he sits ba'oyla shel Torah in her tent of Torah, and he's marbitz Torah b'Yisrael al yada, and he's spreading Torah in Klal Yisrael through her. He's zachar be'emes. She's really called a zachar because she's providing. The hamekablim acherim, people who are forces that are receiving on the receiving end, lo'elam nikram nekevas. They're always called what we call b'china denukva. They're called kilo female. V'im hem zacharim b'taylada nekevas hema be'emes. Even if they happen to biologically be male, but they're considered like nekeva because they have this b'china of receiving. So it's the same thing over here when we're talking about harim and gvois. That harim is the avis and gvois is the imahis. So I saw my Rebbe in the Sefer Rav Elio Margolis Shlita has a Sefer Emunas Eliezer on Inyane Purim, one of his farm. So in Perek Daled he mentions that he doesn't say where he heard it from, but he says that he heard from Fachash of a person that the word Gavois is related to the word Govia. Govia means a cup or a goblet. Actually, the word goblet sounds very similar to the word Govia. What's the mahus of a cup? The cup is a cup has no chashivus on its own. It's nothing important on its own. A cup doesn't mean anything. So a cup is to hold something else. A cup is something that accepts a hashpah from something. You take a bottle of wine and you pour it in the cup. So the cup accepts the wine. So that's why the word gavois is related to the word gavia. And when we're talking about gavois is the imohis, so the nakuda is that the imohis were the mushpa ones. That's what it means. Bechina de nuchra, bechina de duchra, bechina de nukva. The male aspect and the female aspect. I once asked my Rebbe a question about this. He didn't have an answer then, but I thought about it more, and I don't think it's so difficult. If you think about it, when a woman becomes pregnant, so it says in the pasuk vatahar. The lashon is heroyin. Vatahar literally, let's say, means that she became a mountain. But har is the lashon that we use when we're talking about avos. It should be like vatigba. What's the lashon of tahar? So he didn't have an answer on the spot, but I thought about it afterwards, and I think that the pshat is like this: that we said the aspect of har is that it's a mashpia, and the giva is a mushpa. So we can say that when a woman becomes pregnant, she's mashpia on whatever's inside of her. So now, even though she's in the beginning, let's say she was a mushpa, but now she turned into a mashpia. She became a mountain. She mamish became a mountain. Okay, let's go later. You can wake up now. I stopped talking about the Kabbalah. Okay. Va'ad shaloi nikvu hamayim nivru hama'oiris usahimes. Before Hashem created before Hashem had the waters joined together, so the ma'oiris and the tahimes were created. Now tahimes, let's call it underground bodies of water, and ma'oiris is very difficult to understand what ma'oiris means in this context. Ma'oiris usually means let's say the lighting, the bodies of light, which usually refers to the sun and the moon. But the problem is that we're talking about the third day of creation, and the sun and the moon weren't created till the fourth day of creation. So what does it mean ma'iris over here? So this is the question that's bothering all the Mefarshim, and they have different ways of dealing with it. The Marzu says that the word ma'iris is could also be used as a synonym for the same thing as tahaimais, which you have to know what that means because we said there's no synonyms. But that's what the Marzu says. The Bayis Agadol appears that you have over there on the bottom, he says that it's not supposed to say ma'iris, it's supposed to say bayris, like pits, the pits of water. It's the same idea as underground bodies of water. And the Radal says that it's supposed to say ma'ayanos. The ma'ayanos are springs of water. And And then the Radal says that in other sources where it brings down this medrash, it doesn't even have the word ma'iris b'chlal, it just says tahimis. This is a medrash sheikh when it's bringing down the same drasha. Al kapanim, the main thing over that we're going to discuss is the tahimis, the underground bodies of water were there before. Mazel tov. Fine. Ve'elohein hatahimis. These are the underground bodies of water. Elu shemitachas la'aretz. These bodies of water that are under the ground. Sheha'aretz ala tahimis nirkas. Because the eretz, the land, is, let's call it, draped over these tahimis, these underground bodies of water. Ka'aniya shehitzafa b'lev yam, like a boat that's like sort of floating on top of the water. Kach ha'aretz murukas ala moyim, shneimar l'roika ha'aretz ala moyim. The eretz is like a canopy or a draping over the waters. Now, I don't know that tahimes actually means water. It doesn't. It could be that when we're talking about tahimes, we actually mean molten lava, and this would be very consistent with what we understand and with what scientists tell us, that the world is really, there's different plates that are sitting on top of molten lava. It's a theory of plate tectonics, I think it's called, and it's much like the same idea as the measures. Like the world is sort of like floating on top of something that's called tahimis, and it could be that these tahimis doesn't mean underground water, but it means, or to some extent, it means like molten lava, and the world is sort of floating on that. And we know that that's taka true, and we have earthquakes when different plates crash or slide into each other. We have earthquakes and other geological phenomena like that. Volcanoes, right? The same idea. It could be that that's what the Medrash is referring to. I'm not sure. I don't know for sure that the word tahimes means water. In other contexts, it could be it does mean water. But over here, it would make a lot of sense if that's what it's talking about. Okay, the next thing. Upasach legan Eden pasach ba, and Hashem opened an opening to Gan Eden in the eretz, in the land in the land. And the next line over here is shtickle hard to read, and there's two ways to read it. I have my preferred way of reading it, and then I'll read it that way, and then the way the Radal reads it, and I'll explain why the Radal doesn't like the first pshat. But v'haitzi mimena netoim al panei chol haaretz, and Hashem took out from the land growths all over the world. Things grew all over the world. Kol minei eitz ilan oiseh prili minoi, all different types of fruit trees according to their species. V'chol min eiseh v'desha nata mehem, and all types of grass and vegetation grew out from the eretz. Uvehem zaram al haaretz, and from that's where we have these seeds all over the world. Shenemar asher zaray bay al haaretz v'gomer. That's the way I read it. Basically, what I just read was that from the v'haitzi mimena netoim al panei chol haaretz is saying that Hashem took out all these things from the land. This eitz ilan and the esev and the desha. That's the way I read it. And the reason why I read it like that is because it says v'haitzi mimena. Mimena is lashon nekeva. So what's the nekeva that we're talking about? It has to be the eretz. We find that Pirkei is always using the word eretz as a lashon nekeva. Sometimes it's lashon zara, sometimes it's lashon nekeva. Last week we had the eretz me'eze makom nivreis. It doesn't say me'eze makom nivra. So we see the Pirkei uses the word eretz as lashon nekeva, and that's why I read it like this. But the Radal doesn't like this reading of the Medrash. The Radal favors understanding that this is kashur to what we just read the line before this. We said upesach legan Eden pasach ba. Hashem opened an opening to Gan Eden in the eretz, and then now we're talking about what Hashem took out of Gan Eden. Hashem took out of Gan Eden these different vegetation and growths for the whole world. And he has two reasons why he said. His ikar reason why he says this is because, first of all, otherwise, what shaykhs does this have to do with what we just read about opening to Gan Eden? What does this have to do with making these vegetations? So he says that it has to be that these vegetation coming from Gan Eden. Otherwise, that line of Pesach Gan Eden and Pasach has no shaykhs to what we're talking about. The other nekudah that he says is if we look back at the psukim that when we started this year, we went through the psukim of Hashem creating the third day. So and if we look back in the psukim, where by the way we have brownies if you want. There's no marijuana in the brownies after that.
This isn't Los Angeles.
Maybe you help people understand this year. If there was
Maybe it'll help us understand this. Hallucinogens.
Can you please erase that part from that way the recording before you put it on?
What?
Yeah. Erase that before you put it on the internet. Then it's over email.
I didn't say that. Okay. Anyways, that what's it called? If you look in the psukim, especially let's say Parak Aleph, Pasuk Yud Aleph, and Yud Beis, so it says Vayom Lakim. He says Hashem wanted to bring out three things when we're talking about the vegetation of the world. It says Tachear is deshet, vegetation, Esav Mazrias grass, and Eitz Pri fruit trees. Now, if you look in Pirkei Eliezer, it has it in the exact opposite order. It says V'hoitzi mimeno the Torah called Kol Minei Eitz Ilon, fruit trees, and then Chol Min Esav v'Deshet, not Amahem. Then the grass, and then vegetation. The exact opposite order from the Psukim. So there are Dal reasons that if the Medrash is coming to speak about the same thing that the Psukim is coming to speak about, why would it give in the exact opposite order? The Psukim is talking about what grew on the land. So he said it has to be that we're talking about what grew in Gan Eden, not what grew in the land. And from what grew in Gan Eden, Hashem took the best of that and brought it into Olam Hazeh. He says a few other nukudas also that when we're talking about Hashem creating Gan Eden in the Psukim in Parashas Bereshis in Parak Gimel. Parak Beis, Pasuk Ches. So it says, Vayita Hashem Elikim Gan Be'eden Mikedem. Hashem planted a garden in Eden from Kedem, from the east, or as we said before, like from way before. Vayasem Sham Es Adam Asher Yotzar. Vayatzvach Hashem Elikim Eno Adama. Hashem made grow from the ground Kol Eitz Nechmad Lamaya V'Tev Lamachal, different types of fruit trees. Ve'etz Achaim V'Zechang Ve'etz Adas Tevira. In these psukim it says, Vayita Hashem Elikim, Hashem planted it. Vayatzvach Hashem made it grow. In the psukim where it's talking about the when Hashem created the world, the Eretz, when Hashem created the world and it made vegetation, it doesn't say Hashem did it. It said Vayomer Elikim, Tachear Desha, etc. And there's the Vatoitze Ha'aretz Desha, the land itself created it. So he wants to so the Radal wants to be medayik from that difference in Lashon, that we're talking about two different things. That Hashem created the different things in Gan Eden, and then Hashem took him out, and kilu al derech hateva, or the way he actually uses the expression of that was yesh me'ayin, and now Hashem made a different creation of sort of bringing out what was in Gan Eden into this world. And there it says v'teitzei ha'aretz desha, because Hashem didn't create at this point. It's not sort of a creation. It's more of just bringing out something that was from elsewhere and just bringing it here to Olam Hazeh, I guess. That's the Radal's way of understanding this, and the Radal also discusses when did Hashem create Gan Eden. We said before in Parak Gimel that Gan Eden is one of the things that Hashem created before He created the world, but he brings it, other midrashim don't count it as one of the things that was created before Hashem created the world. So it says that maybe Hashem created. So it says according to them, it sounds like Hashem created Gan Eden on the third day of creation, right before He created the Eretz of our Eretz. Okay, but he points out that doesn't necessarily work with what we said before. That our Precipitation Eliezer says that Hashem created it before. Okay, let's go weiter. So by creating all this vegetation, so the Medrash says, by doing so, Hashem prepared the table from which the creations will eat before the world was created. Shneimar Tarech Lefanei Shulchan. David HaMelech said, Hashem set in front of me a shulchan. And the Medrash, as the Radal explains, the Medrash is dashing, Lefanei doesn't necessarily mean only in front of me, but it means before me. Before I was created, before man was created, before all animals were created, Hashem already set up the table. We have what to eat before He created the creations. And similarly, in all the different springs that get water from the underground bodies of water, they're there to quench the thirst of the things that will be created later on. So Hashem is sort of preparing the food before He creates the different things. The lashon that we just said was before the world was created, Hashem set the table for the creations. So the Marzu points out that this expression of Ad Shalei Nivra Olam, before the world was created, is in this context means before those things were created, because in Perek Gimel we use the expression Ad Shalei Nivra Olam to mean before the whole world was created. We're talking about before the first day of creation. Here we're talking about the third day of creation, so it doesn't mean literally before the world was created. B'chlal, it means before those things were created. I think that's what the Marzu is trying to point out, that this phrase means something different than what it previously meant. The Radal changes, is bothered by the same thing. He even changes the Girsa. It says Baruch Shulchan the Brios actually nivra'u ba'olam, before the Brios were created in the world. Not as opposed to the way we have it. It says actually nivra ba'olam. Nivra ha'olam. Okay. You have something you wanted to say, it looks like. No? Okay, Rabbi Shua Omer. I'll invite Rabbi Shua Omer. Rabbi Shua says, Ovya shel eretz mahalach shishim shana. The thickness of the land is a journey of 60 years. The Radal has a whole cheshbon how this works according to Gemara and Pesachim, but I don't want to get into that. Usohaim echad shehu eitzel gehenim nevea umaytzi mayim chamim ta'anug livnei adam. And we said that the Tahaim is underground bodies of water. So there's one Tahaim Echad, there's one underground body of water, Shuhu Eitzel Gehenim, it's next to Gehenim, Neveya, it's flowing, Umaitzi Mayim Chamim, it brings out hot waters, like hot water springs, Tanug Libnei, which is enjoyable for people. This was one of the reasons why I wanted to say that Tahaim it really refers to molten lava or something. Because you see, it's like talking about hot waters, and I don't know. I'm not sure exactly. I don't know. I didn't see anyone discussing this, but fine. Next, let's see what?
Tahamis doesn't have to mean water.
No, Tahamis just means the depths.
The depths.
Yeah.
But I thought you were trying to say that it means that.
No, I'm just suggesting that when we're saying that the Eretz is floating on the Tahamis, that it's referring to how the continents are on plates on top of molten lava.
Lava, but you're trying to answer that it's not
water. Right.
In Parshas Noach, okay.
In Parshas Noach, when it's talking about the flood, it says Niftachu kol ma'ayanes tahim rabba varu beis Hashem niftachu. Right. So over there, it's talking about how there's certain things that opened up and waters came out from it.
From the Tahamis.
From the Tahamis.
That doesn't mean that it is that.
Right.
I mean, it has that, and it has.
Right. So I don't know. I'm not sure. It's just a suggestion. I think it just makes it more geschmack, because it works out with the Messias as the way scientists explain it. But okay, this is another thing that Mamish, when you read this, it goes back to high school science. You Mamish see how everything works out together. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Pam achas b'chol chodesh v'chodesh, once a month, silonis elin min hatahimes. Pipes come up from these tahimes, umashkin es kol pnei ha'adama, and it gives what's it called? It moistens the all of the land. Shneimar, because it says in the pasuk, ve'eid ya'alam min ha'aretz, a cloud is going to come up from the ground, from the land. V'hishka es kol pnei ha'adama, is going to quench the face of the whole land. What does that mean? The clouds, they empty out their. I don't know why it uses this expression. It's a very funny expression. Mashmin is called sinarei sehen. Literally means they allow the voice of their pipes to be heard, which I think it means. I think the Pashup Shad is it means that it just empties out its contents into the yamim. So the clouds empty out their contents into the seas. And the seas empty out their contents to the Tahaimais. Usahaim kare el tahaim, and one underground body of water calls to the other underground body of water, lahales mayim v'litin la'avim, to bring out water and give it to the clouds. Shneimam tahaim el tahaim kare lekol tzinirecha. It's a pasuk in Tehillim. One underground body of water to one underground body of water calls out, and to the voice of their pipes. The ha'avim, and the clouds, shayavim mayim mina tahimes, they draw water from these tahimes. And the Marzul says that there's a different gersa that says they draws out water from the yam, which I think makes more sense. It draws out water from the seas. The clouds draw water from the seas. Shneimar malan and sikseoretz. It's very it makes it very complicated and esoteric. But what I think over here, what's going on over here is a very simple idea that we learn about it when we're in science class in elementary school. Even the whole system of how there's precipitation, that the rain comes down and then it evaporates and it goes back into the clouds, and it's in the air, and then it goes into, and then it builds up in the air, and then it goes into clouds, and then it comes back down. It's a whole shaklavitaya of recycling and going back and forth to here and there. I think that this is exactly what the Medrash is talking about. The water is coming down, and it goes here, and then it goes back up into the clouds. It's exactly what the Medrash is referring to. The only thing which we don't understand is, why does the Medrash say that this is once every 30 days? What does this have to do with 30 days? In some places it rains, every other day. In New York, or it rains within once a week. It has to rain once every 2 weeks max. In some places it never rains. What's this? Once every 30 days, this whole cycle of that it moistens the land. Mashkenes kol panehu adama. So I think this nukuda of the 30 days, that we have to understand it not pashut pshat. We have to understand it more esoterically. And the malach to understanding it is like this. This is coming from Rav Yosef Engel. Rav Yosef Engel was Rav in Krakow. He's one of my favorite machaber svarim. He wrote a lot of different svarim. Tons and tons of svarim he actually wrote, and not all of them do we still have. But his famous farm, he has Gilyani Ashas, Asfain Daraisa, Lekach Tev, Mamsh, these are Lomdish farm. But he also has like Drush. So there's a sefer called Eitzris Yosef. The Chelik Gimel, he has a whole, it's called, what's it called? Drush, Maimer Levana. Chelik Gimel, Maimer Levana. He talks about, what's this 30 days over here that we're talking about? He says that 30 days is the minimum interval for something that it requires to be something that is required to be mekabel hashpa, which to receive hashpa, the minimum amount that it could survive on is if it gets an interval of hashpa once every 30 days. L'dugma, we said tonight, all of us I think said this tonight. Tanan Vei Shmuel. If it wasn't for it's a Gemara in Sanhedrin. If it wasn't for the fact that, I think it's a Gemara in Sanhedrin. If it wasn't for the fact, if it wasn't that, if Klal Yisrael would only be mekabel Pnei Avim Shabbos Shemayim, only be mekabel from Hashem once a month, dayan, that would be enough. What does it sound like? It sounds like if it would be makabel less often than once a month, that's not enough. We wouldn't be able to survive it. Once a month, to be makabel, that's enough. To be makabel, all you need is once a month. Similarly, actually, when we get to the parsha, we find there's a Gemara in Yevamos. The Gemara, you're learning Yevamos, no? You're not learning Yevamos. Someone's learning Yevamos, I know? Nobody. Okay. Well, there's a Gemara in Yevamos that says that the Gemara gives you good advice, marriage advice. The Gemara says, this is good marriage advice, yeah? The Gemara says, don't have more than 4 wives. Okay? That's what the Gemara says. Don't have more than 4 wives. Why?
Makes sense for us.
Huh? Makes sense. Okay, why 4? What's 4 wives? So the Gemara says because the oina of a Talmud Chacham is me'erev Shabbos, erev Shabbos. So you want to make sure that each wife gets once a month. Right? So once a week divided into a month. So if you have 4 weeks in a month, so everyone is going to be beseder. Everyone gets once a month. The Gemara says ad shloshim yoyim muki inish anafshei. It's also Gemara in Yevamos. there's a case where Yavam and Yavam were living together, and then she claimed that he didn't do Yibum. So the Gemara says that if it was after 30 days, then we don't believe her, because it's impossible. He's going to live with her and not do Yibum. But if it was within 30 days, then it's possible, because he could hold himself back for 30 days. But more than 30 days, impossible.
How did David Melech manage?
What?
How did David Melech manage?
David-
Yeah, the 18 wives of his Talmud Chacham.
So it's a Medrash. The Medrash talks about it. The Medrash says that's what it means in the pasuk. B'demasi arsi emsa. Ein sham. In Medrash Sheichet on that pasuk. But once every 30 days. That's also the pshat. The Meshech Chochmah in this week's parsha says that Lavan said to Yaakov Avinu, "Im tanes b'nei Isai, im tikach noshim al b'nei Isai." You better not take any other wives. That was one of the bit when Lavan caught up to Yaakov Avinu, he made a treaty with him. So one of the Tanaim was that Lavan said to Yaakov, "You better not get any more wives." So Meshech Chochmah says, "What does he care?" So it says because Yaakov Avinu had 4 wives, Rachel, Leah, Bilhah, and Zilpah. So with 4 wives, he's mekayim his gemara. To take more than that, that's already that's unacceptable. Less often than once every 30 days. To be if you're mekabel hashpah, less often than that, you can't survive like that. So Rav Yosef Engel says that's what the Medrash is referring to. That things need to be replenished once every 30 days. Pam achas b'chol chedesh v'chedesh, things have to be redone. And it's interesting that the Medrash over here, as we're going on, is gonna continue on this theme, this motif of making it sort of a mashal between the rain or the waters, giving koyach to the eretz to create flora, and the relation between a man and a woman. But all of this really is a mashal for something even greater, which we'll get to Be'ezus Hashem at the end when he gets to mamish, the punchline. That says mamish, the punchline, which is at the end of this of the parak, and then we'll be able to understand a lot of different ideas in the world. But that sounds very intriguing, no? We understand a lot of ideas in the world. But Al Kapanim, that's what Rav Yosef Engel says. Let's talk about over here. So we're talking about this whole system of evaporation from the oceans going to the seas going to the clouds, and the clouds bringing rain. So the Medrash says, wherever Hashem commands them to go and bring the rain there, sham magshimim, that's where they give the rain. And then when the rain comes and the rain falls, miyad ha'aretz misaberes utzmecha, then the land becomes pregnant and it grows. It causes things to grow. This is Lashon. Miyad ha'aretz misaberes, land becomes pregnant. What does that mean, that the land becomes pregnant? So the Medrash says, it says more than that. Ki isha almana shehi muberes miznus, like a widowed woman who becomes pregnant from promiscuous activity. What does that mean? So the Radal says that it's dashing a pasuk, which it's going to bring the pasuk at the end. The pasuk says in Yeshaya, it says, Ki kasher yered hageshem ha'shalig min hashomoyim, when the rain and the snow come from the Shemayim, b'shamal le'yashuv, it's not going to go back, it only comes down. Ki im hirvas aretz, and it's going to keep coming until the land is quenched, v'halita v'yitzmicha, and it's going to cause the land to give birth and to grow things, v'nosan zera lazayreya, and it's going to give seed to more seeds, v'lechem la'oichel, and bread for people to eat. And then the Navi Yeshaya Parak Nun says that this is a mashal for the word of Hashem, that Hashem says it and it goes, and it has to tuif, and it has to go out and do something in the world. It doesn't come back. Whatever Hashem says goes. But in the lashon over there was v'haylida v'hetzmicha. It goes and it gives birth. And the Radal says that when it says v'haylida, so he says v'haylida doesn't literally mean gives birth, because it doesn't right away sprout, let's say, fruits and vegetables or whatever. So first it becomes pregnant, kibiyachol. What does it mean pregnant? Pregnant just means it has now it's set up that in 9 months from now a potato is going to grow up from under the ground. But now it's sprouting and then it starts growing or whatever. And he says that we find that the lashon of haylida means ibur. I actually found that there's a tesis in Yevomis. The Gemara in Yevomis has a shtickle complicated sugya, but over there the Gemara uses the lashon tsar leida, that there's a chashash that the Cyrus are going to fall off from tsar leida. Yevomis Yud Gimel Amud Aleph. That Cyrus would fall off from tsar leida, and Tesis explains that it can't be talking about leida because if it was a woman that gave birth, then she's for sure gedel later. So Tesis comes out that when it says tsar leida, it means tsar ibur. So it's already a Mefursha Tesis that the expression leida could also refer to ibur.
How come it's talking about an
almana?
No,
Okay. So first, it's unfair because I didn't really finish off exactly what the Medrash said because I got too carried away with what I was saying. But the point is that when the land becomes sustained from clouds giving rain, from this whole system of water and evaporation and condensation and precipitation and everything, this whole system that gave rain to come out, and the land grows from that. So the Medrash is saying that that's not the optimal way of growing things. That's not the real agriculture that we want to happen. That's more like a woman who becomes pregnant in not the optimal situation. She's an almana, she's not married, and she becomes pregnant from znus. She doesn't become pregnant from a normal, healthy relationship. So this is not what we want. It works. It's the same thing. At the end of the day, you have a baby. It doesn't matter who the father was and how they got together. It's the same thing, but that's not what we want. What do we want? Says the Medrash. When the Kodesh Baruch Hu wants to bless the growth of the land, and to give repast to the creations, what does Hashem do? He opens the good storage houses in the heavens, and he brings down rain to the eretz. Shehein mayim zacharim, because these are male waters. What does that mean, male waters? And then when Hashem brings down these waters that are coming directly from Shemayim, miyad haaretz misaberes, the land becomes pregnant. Again, the same imagery. Like a bride who becomes pregnant from her first husband. The Radal actually changes the girsa to kibisula hamisaberes mi bailo harishin, to like a virgin who becomes pregnant from her husband in the beginning. It's interesting, some agav, because the Gemara says Enisha misaberes mi birishena. So how's that possible? So the answer really is, what I think is that Precipitation Blazer is Lishitasa in Perek Tazayin. We're going to see that the Perek Tazayin, Precipitation Blazer basically says that Isha could be misaberes mi birishena because there was a minhag that they used to take out the besulim with the etzbab when they got married. So then from the birishena you could get pregnant. But that's just a Precipitation Blazer Lishitasa. Al Kaponim. That's the optimal way of sustaining the land. Getting the mayim directly from the Eitzoris Hatayv Shabashamayim that Hashem brings down the bracha of Shefa. We said that these waters are called mayim zacharim, male waters. Why are they called male waters? So the Radal says that the Radal doesn't speak it out, but what the Radal means to say is that when you're talking about the mayim of the tahimais, even of the underground bodies of water that, let's say, are coming down to the ground via the clouds, so those mayim are the mayim shalmata, and the mayim that are coming from Shemayim is the mayim shalmala. So when you're talking about mayim shalmala versus mayim shalmata, so what's lamala is bechina of zachar, and what's lamata is the bechina of nekeva. So that's why it says, it calls with the mayim that comes directly from the Shemayim, it calls it mayim zacharim, because it's a bechina of zachar. And it's also interesting that the Gaon in Shir Shirim, in Perek Beis Pasuk Ches, when he says that he has another pshat in Harim and Gvois, And he says that Harim represents Sarim Shal Mala, and Gavoyas represents Sarim Shal Mata. I don't know what that means exactly, but it's the same idea that the Zachar is Lamala and the Nekeva is a Bechin of Lamata. Okay. So what's the punchline of all of this? Says the Medrash. Uksiv. It says in the pasuk, Ki yival bachur besulo yivaluch bonoich, and the end of the pasuk is a little bit more famous. Umisayis chasan al kala yasis alayich elei koich. That basically, the way that a bachur is with a besulo, or the way a chasan is going to be happy with his kala, so too Hashem is going to have the same type of relationship with Klal Yisrael. And then it brings this pasuk that we said in Yeshaya, Ki kasher yered hakeshem v'ashelag min hashamoyim v'chulu. That the relationship between Klal Yisrael and Kadosh Baruch Hu is you can understand it with the mashal of a man and his wife, or you can understand it with the mashal of the rain providing for the ground. That just like a man provides for his wife and the rain provides for the ground, so too HaKadosh Baruch Hu provides for Klal Yisrael. Interesting, the last shtickle of the Radal, he says that there's a Gemara in Mesachas Tainis, Daf Tesam and Beis, brings machlekes between Rabbi Eliezer, our Rabbi Eliezer, and Rabbi Shua, the person who always argues with him. The Gemara says, where does the waters of the rain come from? So one says it comes from the Shamayim, and one says that it comes from the Tahimis. And Rabbeinu B'chaye in Parshas Ekev brings that Gemara, and he says that in Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer, it makes a pshara, it makes a compromise between these two shitas. When Klal Yisrael is doing good, so then it comes straight directly from Shemayim. When Klal Yisrael is not doing good, when people are not Zaycha, then it comes from the Tahimis. So he's saying that Pirkei Eliezer is sort of making a hachra between these two shitas in the Gemara. Al Kapanim, these two nekudas of the man and the wife, and the water and the ground is be'etzim we're saying is a mashal for the relationship between the Kadosh Baruch Hu and Klal Yisrael. And I saw a very powerful thought from Rav Shimshon Pincus, and I think that this will help us understand a lot of things that's going on nowadays, and how maybe we can try to do something to sort of rectify the situation in the world and make things better for us. He brings a story. This is a piece of paper that's floating around, which is a Sichas Musa from Rav Shimshon Pincus. But he brings a beautiful story that illustrates this point. In the time of Rav Kiva Eger, there was the chasana, that this was going to be this was the chasana of the century. Everyone from all the surrounding towns were going to come visit to this town for the chasana, and everyone knew about it, and they were preparing about it for months before. Kilo like Rechnitz's chasana a few months ago. I don't know if you heard about it, but everyone knew about this. And what happened was, a few minutes right before the chasana, two Eidim came over to the Rav who was going to be Masada Kedushin, and they told him, you should know, we're giving Eidus that the chasan is actually a mamzer, and he's not allowed to marry her. Malasat. Two kosher Eidim, right? What are you supposed to do? So they called off the chasana. The Masada Kedushin can't. I just heard Eidos that this guy's. What am I supposed to do? They call off the chasana. This shallow. What are you supposed to do in this situation? What are they supposed to do? Everyone was handling about it. It was a big hack. They didn't know what to do. So he came one of the. What? What did you say?
The famous times in Marcos.
Yeah.
To find people that were with the Eidim when they saw what they saw.
The Jewish Chakira.
Yeah.
But so somehow the question came to the Chassam Sefer, and they asked, what are we supposed to do? So the Chassam Sefer said, try to find out if these two people that gave Eidos, try to find out if they're relatives of the Chassan. So they did a deep investigation. They hired a PI or whatever. They looked into it, and Taka came out that these two people that said that the guy was a mamzer, they were actually his relatives. I don't know exactly what they were, his brothers or I don't know, his uncles or something like that. They were mamish relatives of this guy. So they said to Chassam Sefer, you have Ruach HaKodesh? How did you know? Kiva actually, he himself, when he was astonished at how his son-in-law, Chassam Sefer, was able to figure this out. He said, how do you know, where do you have Ruach HaKodesh? Chassam said, no, it's Pashut. Everyone knew about this. The whole country, all surrounding villages, everyone, all the towns, everyone knew about this chasana. For months, they were preparing about it. Why is it that all of a sudden, 10 minutes before the chuppah, someone told them inside the Kedusha? Why didn't they come forth weeks ago, months ago? What happened over here? Says some Sefer Elamai, such rishus, someone who's coming to do such rishus, that dafka right before the chasana to mess up the whole thing, such rishus can only come from a relative. Only a relative would do such a thing. What's the word? The word is when relatives get along and they're doing the right. They have a good relationship with each other, so everything is good. Baruch Hashem, everything is good. But when relatives who otherwise would be expected to have a close, good relationship with each other, and something turns sour and they turn against each other, that makes it even worse. It's mamish horrible, really, and people would do the worst things to their own relatives. He says, Rav Pinkus points out, Chazal said this already, that the word ish v'isha, right? So when they're doing the right thing, shchina b'neihem. Why? Because ish has a yud, isha has a hey. So you have the Shem Hashem is mamish with them. Ish and isha together, they have the Shem Hashem. But when you don't have, when they're not doing the right thing, when they lose the name of Hashem, what do you have? Eish ve'eish. You fire. The mamish like negative, they burn each other, they destroy each other. That's when there's a huge potential or expectation of closeness, and it's not there, and there's something instead there's a machlokes, that mamish causes the worst things to happen. So Rav Pinkus says that that's the same thing in the relationship between Kadosh Baruch Hu and Klal Yisrael. Just like in a relationship between man and woman, it's the same thing in the relationship between Kadosh Baruch Hu and Klal Yisrael. We're expected to be close to Hashem, but when we're not, Imam can bring out the worst things, the worst catastrophes. He spells it out. He says, "Kasher noitzar efoi kas v'richot b'neim." When however it comes out that there's a anger and distance between Klal Yisrael and Kadosh Baruch Hu, ha'toitzah ha'muchrachas hi, the obligatory result would be tsaris ayumayis v'neirois, horrible and wondrous sufferings, gzeres tachtat, the Chelmensky massacres, Hashoya, the Holocaust, the Intifadas, etc. Mamish, a fire. So, this is, I think, negate to Bizman Hazeh, where we see all kinds of horrible things that are happening all over the world to Klal Yisrael. And the way to rectify it is for us to remember that when we're close to Hashem, everything is okay. And when we're not close to Hashem, Eila l'chayu, Eila mabo ve'eila. Thank you guys for coming. A good talk.